November the 18th, 2004, and I'm Ivan Blau, and I am going to be talking to Dick Biemers, Richard Biemers. I know him as Dick. He's been a friend of mine for many years, and so we're going to attempt to do a oral military histories program here. And this history, Dick, is going to be videoed by Nick Blau. And what we'll be doing with that film is to put it in the archives of the Lowell Area Historical Museum. And it will also be in the archives of the National Museum too. They have access to our stuff if they want to. Yeah. So that's what this project is sponsored by the Lowell Area Historical Museum. And this is just actually a very unique interview, I think, anyway, because Dick here is living here with Len Mall and his daughter, Jan, and they're living actually on the same farm area, here at the corner of 28th Street and Lowell View that Dick spent his childhood at. So, Dick, if you kind of want to tell us a little bit about your parents and their family you grew up with as a little kid, we'd like to hear all about that.
Well, my folks lived with my grandparents in a house just half a mile east of here, and Grandpa had a truck farm. Mm-hmm. And Dad had worked on the railroad for years, and then he left the railroad because my mother wanted to. He was gone all the time, gone for a long time. He was a tinsmith on the railroad.
Uh-huh.
So they come home and help work on the farm out here. And so Grandpa I understood Grandpa gave him this 10 acres here for helping him on the farm out there. So we started, built a house down there.
Yeah, there's a house over here that there was the old homestead. This house is over here, is that right?
The old homestead.
And
had a kitchen and dining room and two bedrooms.
Right behind the plant.
Okay. Had a kitchen and dining room and two bedrooms.
Kitchen, dining room, and two bedrooms.
Kitchen, dining room, and two bedrooms.
It wasn't very high either, was it?
No, it was, but part of it's under the ground.
Oh, okay.
Part of it's under the ground.
Well, that was almost like earth-sheltered homes then that they talked about today, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This side is earth-sheltered, but the other side isn't.
Is open. Okay, well, that was to the south, and that's the way they're supposed to build them. Yeah. I see that on the side of that out there, there's some old tools I think you got hanging there.
There's a crosscut saw that today the kids would know it as a chainsaw. The chainsaw in them days was two men, one on each end, one pulling and one pushing.
That's right.
That's what you cut trees down with and cut them up if they were big trees. Then next to it was a buck saw, what's called a buck saw, and that was for the limb wood. Cut the limb wood up, and you had a cradle that you put your stuff on, and you cut it up and used it. Mother always used it for cooking meals and stuff like that, where you wanted to quick in the fire, and it went out fast.
It'd be about 16 inches long, didn't it?
Yeah, in them days, yeah. And then the other is a scythe, which today would be called I don't know what you would call it today. I
can't keep up with the new names of the machinery either. I guess it's combine almost, only it cut. It was a cutter, yeah.
You cut it and you took about a 5-foot swath, and then you come back and start it in, and then you done another 5-foot rod. And that was what I used to keep. That was my job around, and it's all grown up today, but back in them days, Mother and Dad wanted it all leveled off so you could see the road, so that was all cut. And then
like a mowing machine.
like a mowing machine.
Or a brush hog we'd have
Brush hog,
today.
yeah.
Keep the weeds down.
Well, they had a brush hog, and also they had a little stouter scythe than that, what you call a brush hook.
Mm-hmm.
The neighbor had one down there, and he said one day, he says, why don't you finish the job? I says, I ain't got a brush hook. He says, I got one you can borrow, so he let me borrow it, and I about 3 or 4 passes with it, and the handle broke, and Dad says, no, he said, damn it, he said, I didn't have none money to buy one for myself, but now I'll have to buy one for him to replace it, he said. So he said, you don't borrow anything from anybody anymore. He said, if you ain't got it, you go learn to go without.
It just happened. Every time you borrow something, something breaks.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's a lesson a lot of us learned. Now, that place was built by your dad.
That's right.
And you paid taxes on it.
Yeah.
That's 10 acres.
Yeah. Taxes on that from the land title on it was $8.88 a year. Yeah, back in the day.
And probably had a hard time coming up with it.
They did. He didn't have for 3 years in a row there. He never had money enough to pay the taxes.
What was your dad and mom's name?
Fred and Esther Biemers.
Fred and Esther Biemers.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the rest of your family, Dick? How many? Who
I
were
had
they?
2 brothers and a sister.
Okay.
They're all gone.
Are they older or younger?
All younger.
All younger. You're the oldest.
I was the oldest.
And you were
My
born.
dad said the oldest and most spoiled.
Yeah, and I believe you were born in 1920, weren't you? Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about what was life like back then when you was a kid, let's say 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, as you can remember, first remember.
We didn't have no money. We weren't poor because everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah, you know you were poor, didn't you?
Didn't know we were poor. But you had cornmeal mush for breakfast, like I tell the grandkids.
Yeah.
Fried cornmeal mush for dinner. And if Dad was lucky enough during Depression days to go work for the farmers that needed some help, he'd come home with a peck of potatoes and a gallon of milk. You'd have potato soup for supper.
Yes, sir.
And if any meat you had in meat, well, you either went fishing or you went and set traps for rabbits and stuff. And you ate rabbits, and you ate coon, you ate pheasants, you ate muskrat saddles.
Yes, sir. The back end of the muskrat.
Yeah.
People don't know what a muskrat saddle is, probably.
No.
Oh.
You ate squirrel, coon, woodchuck.
Yes, sir. Then,
these kids today just turn up their nose at every bit of it.
yeah. Then you went to school, what, to McBride School?
I went to school at the McBride School, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Went through 8 grades there, and then from 8 grades, and then went from there to high school.
Now, tell us a little bit about the school there. That was, you walked to school, right?
Pardon?
You walked to school.
Walked to school, I walked a mile, yes, and walked cross lots. I used to be almost a path cross lots. Rather than take a road, I cut down through the fields and the woods.
Sure.
And there was one teacher, and she had 8 grades. It was a 1-room schoolhouse. And I think the most we ever had was 11 kids in 8 grades.
Yeah.
That she had to teach. And when I got in the 7th and 8th grade, in the wintertime, she paid me 50 cents a week to go to school and build a fire in the furnace so that the school would be warm by the time the rest of the kids got there.
That was a lot of money too, wasn't it?
That was a lot
You
of
felt
money.
like you really had a 50-cent piece. I mean,
Had the world with a tail and a downhill pull.
yes, sir. Tell me, one day, I think must have been about 1927 or 28, you were walking to school one day and a car come down the road.
Yeah, that didn't clear the roads like they do today, and didn't mow along them. And I and two neighbor kids, and we jumped in the side of the road and
Into the brush, right?
into the brush, and the brush come back and hit me in the eye, and
Mm.
it didn't hurt any. And I went to school, and the teachers asked me what I was crying about, and I told her I wasn't crying. She says, "Well, I see you wiping your eye all the time." She says, and she come down and looked at it, and she says, "Well, you got to go to the doctor right now." So took me to the doctor, and the doctor's low, and she couldn't have done nothing for me. So he said, Dad it was Depression Day, and Dad was running a trap line to get money, trapping muskrats. So she took me right.
Your teacher took you.
Teacher took me and my mother to the hospital in Grand Rapids, Butterworth. And they put me in the hospital down there and operated on my eye, and they saved my eye, but I couldn't see out of it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, that's a significant thing we'll have to remember as we go through this whole history of your life, how it's kind of been a little guide that wandered and changed the path that you went, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was a blessing or a hindrance, but after the war,
Yes.
after school, I and another friend went down, applied for the state police, and at the last minute he changed his mind and enlisted in the Marines. And I was in the state police for 3 days, and they found out I couldn't see out of the right eye. And I had my little bag in my hand, and I was back on my way home.
Oh, you must have cheated a little bit to get in there.
I did. I cheated. I memorized the chart, so when I got to it, when they covered up the left eye, I memorized the chart so that I got by with it. And
Now, this was right after you graduated from high school, right?
Yeah,
You
right.
graduated in 1938.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you remember about high school? You went to Lowell, did you, to high school?
Went to Lowell High School, yeah. Never figured on going to college, so I took the easiest subject I could take.
Any way to get through, huh? Did you play any sports or anything in school?
No, I had fallen and broken an arm, put it out its eye, and my dad said he had all the damn hospital doctor bills he wanted to do, and he wouldn't allow me to play any
Wasn't
sports.
going to spend any more time
No,
fixing you up.
They didn't have no
Hospitalization
like they do today. So, so he wouldn't allow me to play any sports.
Mm-hmm. So, now that was 1938, and in 1938, the Germans were really kicking up their heels again over there. They had gone into starting up that would be the Second World War, and they'd gone into Poland, and they had taken Poland, and they were into Australia. They were in the Czechoslovakia. They were in Norway. They were in Denmark. They were really advancing at a high rate. That was in about 1938 in that era, and so the conditions around here, was it kind of annoying? How did you view that at that time, Dick?
Well,
How did it affect people here, the war?
Didn't affect me in a way, because I figured if the state police wouldn't want me, Uncle Sam wouldn't want me either.
Uh-huh. So,
but I got my draft notice,
Mhm.
and I went down to.
Didn't you go to after you missed the state police? Didn't you for a couple years there? Didn't you, or when you were trying to do some other jobs and so on? Didn't you go to Willow Run or something? one time there?
Tried to get into Willow Run.
Because that was a place where you could
where
make
they
some
made
pretty
the
good
bomber-
money.
Made the bombers down there.
Mhm.
And 5 of us went down, and 4 of us stayed, and I wouldn't take me because of my eye again. So I come home.
Okay.
So then shortly after that, I got my draft notice, and I felt pretty cocky because I couldn't. State police didn't want me in the
Willow Run, huh?
Willow Run bomber plant. So I figured Uncle Sam didn't want me either. So I went down to the draft board, and I forget where we went. We went down to, I think it was Battle Creek down at Fort Custer.
Uh-huh.
And
You go by train down there?
yeah.
Okay.
Train or bus, I can't remember which now.
Mhm.
But anyway, went through the line down there, and I come up against the eye check again,
Yeah.
like the old days. And I read everything with my left eye, and then he said, "Now read the other eye," and I said, "I can't see a thing." He said, "Now wait a minute, son." He said, "Don't give me that stuff." And I said, "My God, you take a look at it. If you can fix it, I'd go any place you want me to go." He took a look at it, and he says, "Whoever done that has done a good job of that." And I said, "Yeah, well, Doc Highland in Grand Rapids years ago. He saved eye, but he couldn't save the eyesight." And he said, "Well, you sit over here." So I sat over against the wall with probably 15, 20 other guys, and naked as jaybirds, and not a cigarette to smoke or a pocket to put your hands in or anything. Sat there for about 3-4 hours, and finally, after they got through, and then they come around to us and looked at each one of us and said, "Well, we'll take you, you can go home. Got to me, he said, "Well, what are we going to do with you?" He said. I said, "If I had my way, I'd been home a long time ago. I'd been out here a long time ago." And he said, "Don't feel that way about it." He said, we'll put you in limited service
Oh, gee.
because of the eyes. So I was put in non-combatant service.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay. And then were you sent home after that?
I was home for a few days, and then had to report back to Fort Custer.
To Fort Custer. Okay. And now, did you have you didn't have the eye? Did you have a basic training that you went through, or didn't you
No,
go to
not
basic
not
training?
there. Not there. Went from Fort Custer was just an induction center,
Yeah. Okay.
and from there we were transferred out of there, and went to. I was transferred up to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, and put in what they call an MPEG company,
EEG.
Military Police Escort Guard.
Okay.
And they had a compound there. It's similar to what the Japs went to, but it was for German aliens,
Oh, okay.
for Germans that were not
Citizenized or legalized here.
legalized as citizens, yeah, or didn't want to be or something. And anyway, we had to guard them 24 hours a day. They were inside of a fence up there.
Mhm.
And I was there for probably 4 months.
Yeah, that was about the end of. You got in August in '42, and so that was probably in December.
Yeah.
Around that time, huh?
So shortly after that, I was transferred out of that outfit, and I transferred up to the station hospital in Camp McCoy.
Now, where was Camp McCoy?
Well, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It's all right.
First, we went through basic training, and then into the MPG company.
Okay. That basic training, what did that consist of?
Just marching and courtesy of officers and so on and so forth, military
Jargon. Huh?
jargon.
Yeah. Well, and so, of course, your marksmanship probably wasn't so sharp. Or did you have any?
Yes,
Did you?
we had marksmanship.
Did you?
And
Now all these guys were limited service people.
none of
Okay.
we were all
Right.
limited service people.
Okay.
And I remember in basic training, a buddy of mine that's alive today yet in Granville. He was left-handed. I was right-handed. We were laying on the briar squad, and he had the rifle in his left hand, and the sergeant come along and kicked him in the butt and said, "Put that rifle in your right hand. You can't shoot left-handed in the Army." So, I was doing the same thing, and he said, "You got to shoot right-handed." And I said, "The only thing I can do is shoot right-handed." If you ever shot a 30-06, and I had to lay my nose over here and look down the sights with my left eye and pull the trigger, and every time you did, she
Kick in the nose.
kicked me right there.
Yeah.
I got off the firing range that day, and I was black and blue. Clear down around to here. For about 3 weeks. And so that was the end of I was shooting with the rifle.
Oh, they let you off for that then?
Huh?
You didn't have to shoot again?
That was all we had to do was we had to shoot, but that was just frequent as how the arm operated.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I went into the MPG company, and from there I was transferred up to the station hospital and put on ward duty up there, and we had something like 55, 60 wards up there, and 16 beds in each ward. And I was fortunate in a way. I got the contagious ward.
Contagious
I
ward.
had the contagious ward.
Huh.
Anything,
And these are all servicemen.
all servicemen, yeah.
Okay. They were
All
patients.
servicemen. And at that time there was a bunch of what you call sleeping sickness going on at that time. Every time you went in the room, you had to put a gum and mouthpiece on around you, and when you wash your hands before you went in, wash your hands with a antiseptic bowl set outside the door there when you come back out and dry your hands. And that was for a while, and then finally that waned away, and then they gave me a woman's ward, changed it over to a woman's ward.
No, this was in Wisconsin, yeah?
Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin?
At Camp McCoy.
Okay.
And I had officers' wives, nurses, and enlisted men's wives in the ward. And that was much easier for me to do. There wasn't much for me to do. All I had to do at that time was dispense a little medicine, and what we could do. And the nurses, of course, being most of the women, the nurses had to take care of the women. We dispensed medicine and got the food carts and dispensed the food 3 times a day and cleaned the wards and kept the wards clean. That's all we had to do there. And that lasted for about a year and a half. And then things were getting a little warmer over in Europe. And
yeah, that would have been, of course, the Japs were also attacked Pearl Harbor in '41 there, so that was going strong now, and I know that's probably why they took a lot of limited guys, don't you imagine? Because they needed a lot of guys here, mobilize them fast, and so anyway, so then what happened?
Well, I'm trying to recall now.
Well, You were in the ward there for about a year and a half with the women's ward or part. You've been
And then we got transferred from the station hospital. We got transferred to another outfit. It was on camp. It was called 156 General Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And we had trained some of them guys in the hospital.
Okay.
And we were in barracks down there, and then all we done from day to day was either work up at the hospital or we turn around and would march or something out on the march grounds, and just to keep us busy. And then finally we got the notice that we was to go overseas.
Oh.
So we left from there and went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and stayed there for about 2 or 3 days. Well, maybe it's a little over a week, I think it was. And we got uniforms, new uniforms, and refitted and stuff. And then they went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and from Fort Dix we went to New York, and got on the Queen Lizzie.
Queen Mary?
Queen Lizzie.
Queen Lizzie.
We went over on the Queen Lizzie, and there was 17,000 men on that boat.
Wow.
With the crew, and there wasn't much room to move around.
I guess not.
And
Probably not.
we had to switch beds. One day you slept on the bunk, the next day you slept out on the dock, on the deck.
Oh.
And we spent 4.5 days going overseas, and we arrived in Liverpool, England, and from Liverpool we took a train, boarded a train to Hereford, England.
Mm-hmm.
And we were originally supposed to set up in France, hospital in France, but the casualties were coming back and heavier than they intended, so they set us up in a British hospital, and we stayed there for a year.
Where was that?
Hereford, England.
At Hereford. I got a map here, Dick. And I don't know how much we can see of that, but you can, I know.
Hereford.
Yeah, we can do it this way.
Hereford right down about
Yep.
right there.
Right there it is, Hereford, England.
Yeah.
You had to come across Ireland and across Wales, didn't you?
Yeah.
And
I don't know how we did. I don't know how we did because it was still.
Well, come by ship probably over here.
Come by ship, but
yeah.
They still had submarines out.
Oh yeah. Anyways, you got there to Hereford. Now that was a hospital.
Where we landed was we landed at Grock, Scotland.
Oh.
So we had to come. We must have had to come around the northern part of
Way up here you
way
came.
up here.
All right.
Got up and then from train. We come from train down to Hereford.
All the way down through England.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Liverpool. That's right. That's so you.
Yeah. Liverpool was pretty well blasted out by the Germans.
Okay. Now, after you landed there and you came down through England there, did you was there air raids and stuff like that going on yet or not?
We never seen any air raids going on, but we see a lot of bombers going over,
So
going to Germany.
on their okay.
On their way to Germany every night. Every night, about 5, 6 o'clock, it was just scads and scads of bombers going over.
Mhm.
You knew somebody's going to get hell that night.
Now, this was Herper. What was the name? Was it a hospital there then? That was that?
No, it was.
It was a.
It was. We were just 12 miles outside of Hereford,
Okay.
and it was on rich man's ground.
Okay.
And the castle was up on the hill, and then and the hospital was built there.
Did you have to help build that hospital?
No, it was all set
It
up,
was all done.
all built and set up when we got
before you
there.
got there.
All we had to do was clean the place up, make it fit for habitation
Oh yeah.
for patients. Then the trains come in about 2 miles away on the railroad,
Oh yeah.
the hospital trains.
Now they'd be coming from the battlefront
And
across
yeah.
from Germany.
Well, I imagine probably from the southern part of England,
Yeah.
which was clear at that time.
Sure.
They'd come from France to England by boat, and then from train up to us. We got 2 trains a week.
2 trains of patients.
A week.
Wow. That'd be like maybe what?
Well, it all
60.
depends on how many. All depends on
Yeah.
how many we could take. But I don't know how they ever figured it out. But anyway, we go down and get what was there, and carry the litters off of trains and put them on the ambulances and take them to the hospital. And some of them were pretty bad shape, and some of them weren't so bad, but they were all wounded. Either when they left our hospital, they either went back to duty or they were what they called ZI, back to zone interior, back to the States,
Oh, okay.
unfit for duty.
Oh, okay. They could be rehabilitated. They were recycled.
Yeah.
In other words.
Well, some of them went back here and went to places like Gardner General Hospital in Chicago, and some they had a big hospital down here, Fort Custer. Some of them spent a long time down in places where they were discharged and sent home.
Okay. So then, so you do that. That you get 2 trainloads of people a week, patients, new patients, and did you think overall they got pretty good care there? Did they?
We good care. We only had, as far as I know, I think we only lost 7 patients during the year we were over there.
Is that right? Gee, I guess they did have some of the best then medical people there, evidently.
You don't know our commanding officer was a Colonel Patton. Somebody said he was a nephew of Old Blood and Guts.
Oh, is that right?
Whether it was just talk
Yeah.
or what, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But he was a stern old fart, I know that much.
He was he?
Yeah.
Did you have an encounter with him at all?
No. No, I didn't have nothing to do with him. You know, he was over there for a year, and then
While you were there, Dick, did you get a chance to get out into England or to see any of the countryside or the people there, and how did they react to the war, and how are they reacting to American soldiers and so on?
well, they didn't. The only ones that we went to a bar. If you went to a bar at night down there outside of town, you didn't talk to anybody. You walked in and ordered your pint of beer and sipped on it, and if they wanted to talk to you, they'd start a conversation. If you started a conversation, they'd get up and move away.
Oh, so you soon knew who wanted to talk to you and who didn't, huh? Learn that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The first time I went to a bar over there, and of course I wasn't used to the pounds and
Dollars exchange.
Well, the dollar exchange, and so I just reached in my pocket and pulled out some money, and bartender taking. Finally, a young lady that was sitting next to me there. She says, "Yank," she says, "he's a taking you." I said, "What do you mean he's taking me?" She says, "He's overcharging you." She said. And I said, "Well, they're good then." I said, "If he's overcharging me," I said, "let's both drink it. I mean, I'll give you the money and you pay
You
it."
pay him.
So I learned in a hurry how to handle the pence and so forth. And but they didn't think too much of the Yank over there for the reason that the British could go into a pub and they had their pint of beer at night, drink their pint of beer, and go home. The Yank, he goes over there and he sits there all night drinking, and so they were more or less rationed. So he'd go up, order 2-3 pints, and sit there with 2 or 3 pints of beer in front of him. And that's where the animosity come from between the Englishman and the Yank. The Yank was just nothing but a glutton hog.
You drinking too much, okay. Yeah, that didn't sound too good. I can see that where theirs was rationed out. You know, I can see there.
Their beer was right. And then,
of course, was over there kind of saving their butt too. If we hadn't intervened in that war, the United States hadn't intervened, probably England would have been taken very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, it was right on the verge.
I wouldn't have lasted too much longer.
No.
Because I remember I and a buddy of mine in Kalamazoo went to took a little trip down to London. We were down there. They were still sending the buzz bombs over.
Oh, you could hear it. You heard them?
Oh yeah, you could see them flying over and hear them. As long as they kept putting, they was all right. When they quit putting, you ought to duck because they were coming down. And this one come down about 3 blocks away, and the narrow streets up there, the concussion of it. My buddy says, "The hell was this noise? I come down here and enjoy myself." He says, "I didn't come down here to get killed." He turned around and went back to my camp, and I stayed there for the rest of my vacation.
Oh, did you? You had a few days, did you?
Yeah, well, I think we had 5 days, something like that, 3 to 5 days. Leave, little leave. But,
Well, I've heard of them buzz bombs, but I never talked to anybody that actually heard one.
never seen one of the big V bombs, but they were just small buzz bombs.
They were nerve-wracking buggers, though, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, they kill you if you're close enough.
So, all right. Now you were there then for about a year?
We were there about a year, and then the Germans gave up, and we were waiting to get sent back to the States. We spent 5 weeks that I had without a bath, without a shower, without a shave. You can imagine what we were like.
That was
all our stuff had backed up and had been sent to port of embarkation already. And we were just waiting for transportation home.
I think there was one thing you told me about some guy there that was you had taken in the hospital that had his helmet on. When we were talking one day, and can you tell me that story?
I was going to take the helmet from him, and he said, "No," he says, "Nobody gonna take that helmet." He says, "That stays right with me." He says, "Night and day."
He was laying on the stretcher, right?
Yeah, he was laying on the stretcher. He had got hit up in here on the right hand side, and it went through the helmet, and it just left a crease right around the helmet, and it took hiding everything, practically right down to the bone at the same time.
And come out the other side.
Come out the other side.
Gee whiz. So he's going to keep that helmet. Yes,
he's going to keep the helmet.
I bet you saw a lot of different kinds of some terrible injuries that the guys
Well,
had, huh?
most of the wounds that, it's hard to think that most of the wounds that were
Mortal wounds, huh?
no, they weren't mortal wounds. Most of the wounds that were received were in the back and the buttocks.
Oh, really?
That's what sticks up the highest part on the ground.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Then they get the buttocks riddled, laced open with bullets,
Oh,
and a lot of them were phosphorus shells, burns, holes will burn right into them.
oh, okay.
And,
But that's what they use. That's right. That's what they use.
those
Those
phosphorus shells and that stuff that burn until they're burned out. And this you burn right down into the flesh. And the worst that I seen was worst one that we had was an 18-year-old kid that had Germans had thrown a hand grenade, and rather than pick it up, didn't know whether he had time to pick it up and throw it or anything, he just took his helmet off, put his helmet over the top of it. And when it went off, it took both arms to the elbows.
Gosh. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Probably saved his life, though.
That saved his leg,
But it really rehabilitated him, didn't it? Yeah.
They had to send him back home, fit him with arms.
Okay, so then you were sent your stuff all home, and you were on your way back to where? To New York.
We came back to New York. Then back in Fort Dix again. From Fort Dix, we went to Camp Crowder, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And we were down there at Camp Crowder, Missouri, and we were going free for shipment out to the South Pacific. While we were down.
You were.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. The Japanese, the war there was going.
Yeah.
This was not about 90, when they 44,
44, yeah.
44. Yeah.
And so we were down there, and while we were at Fort Crowder, the Japs, they dropped the bombs, and they give up. So then we just sat around and waited and waited and waited. And I think we was about 5-6 weeks just sitting there and twiddling our thumbs till they finally sent us to get rid of us.
Get you out, huh?
Sent us there on the post to send us from Camp Crowder. We went to can't think of the post now.
Was it in Indiana?
Indiana.
Camp Atterbury, maybe?
Camp Atterbury.
Mm-hmm.
Camp Atterbury.
And that's where you got this, right?
Yeah.
That's your discharge
Yeah.
paper?
Yeah.
This was Dick's discharge paper. And that's the thing we're all looking for. And actually, I was looking on your record there a little bit too, Dick, and I see that you actually had some medals coming and so on, or some ribbons and so on. In fact, somewhere, I believe you had is that in here? Did you have a conduct medal, I believe?
That is a good conduct medal.
Yeah. Now, I can hardly believe that Dick had a good conduct medal, but you know.
Well,
Really.
as long as it didn't run,
I'm only kidding, Dick.
as long as you didn't run
I'm only
the
kidding.
courses of MPs, where you were all right.
This was Dick's, that's the good conduct medal, right?
That's right.
Field. Okay.
It's the only one I ever seen. The other medals they never sent me.
Had some others coming in on this discharge paper there. I had a copy of that. In fact, this is a picture of Dick, what he looked like when he was in the service. Guess that's you. Better be.
No, it's
Oh, that isn't you.
that's just a service record thing that they.
Oh, okay, for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe that was.
Everybody got one of those.
Okay, we'll put this back in here too. But Dick, he had I believe that was an American Theater ribbon
Yeah.
and a European Theater ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
Got the Good Conduct Medal there and a Victory Medal.
And the Victory Medal down.
Yeah. Now the Victory Medal, was that the one that has the gun on it with a circle?
No.
No.
That was for the infantrymen.
Oh,
That
that's
was for infantry marksmanship medal.
okay. Okay. Anyway, you got that discharge there in November the 17th, 1945.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dick, were you married at that time?
Yes, I was.
You were married before you left?
Yeah.
And
That's before I went overseas.
just before you went overseas?
Yeah.
Oh, after you were in the service, then is that when you met your wife? Or when you met your wife?
I met my wife before I went in service.
And your wife's name was?
Her maiden name is Mildred Jablonski.
Jablonski.
Yeah, she was one of my. I always call her.
How does Hollander ever get to marry a Jablonski?
Oh, well, my dad. I always called her one of the West Side Irishmen, and she was Polish. And my dad always said, he said, east is east and west is west. I never thought the two would meet.
But they did. All right. So then, where did she do? Come over to New York?
She was no.
Or you got to leave? Or
She was. She had went to the beautician school in Grand Rapids and was a hairdresser.
okay.
And when I was up in Wisconsin, she would come up there and worked on the nurses, in the nurses' beauty parlor.
Oh, okay.
Till I had to go overseas, and I brought her home.
Okay.
And she was pregnant, and my oldest kid was 10 months old before I seen he was born. 2 months after I was overseas.
Oh, okay. And his name was
Richard Jr.
Then after you got home and got back here in Lowell, was it here? You came back to Lowell here, did you?
Came back and lived in Grand Rapids for a while.
Okay. And then another son was born,
Yeah.
and his name was
Kurt.
Kurt,
Yeah, and my daughter Janice.
that you're living with here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dick, I know that you had a lot of different jobs, or not a lot of different jobs, but after you got out of the service, you became a businessman here in Lowell. And was that from what you had done?
When I come out of the service, when I come out of the service, I worked for a new manufacturing company.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Worked over there and threading tubes for their door closers.
Oh, okay.
And till they had, then they started out giving out paid vacations.
Uh-huh.
And when they notified each one who had paid vacation, I'd worked there a year. And I come around and I hadn't had anything from them. I hadn't heard anything from them. And I asked the foreman, I said, where was my paid vacation? He said, didn't you get one? I said, you know darn well I didn't get one. You didn't notify me. And I said, well, you've been here a year? And I said, I worked here before I went in the service. I spent 3.5 years in the service. I come back here and I worked probably 8-9 months since then. And I said, by God, if I'm not due for one, I said, then I don't know who is due for one. He says, I'll go in the office and talk to Mr. Newell. So he went in the office. So he said, come back on. He said, Frank said, he didn't feel that you were due one because you hadn't been here a year yet after you got out of the service.
Oh,
I said,
yeah, I see.
Reached up and I turned on my apron and I hung it over the machine, shut out the machine. I said, you tell Frank, get his ass out of here. I said, run this machine because I'm all done.
I guess so.
And I went right out of there and I left there and I went home and I told my wife I'd quit.
Mm-hmm.
She said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going down to Grand Rapids and get a job down there. So I left there and same afternoon I went down and applied for work at McInerney Spring and Wire.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me when I could start. I said, I can start anytime. She said, we'll put you on night shift tomorrow. And said, show up for tomorrow. So I went down there next day, and I worked down there for quite a long time.
Okay.
Till the auto industry started to go a little bit on kapots, and I was working 1 day, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, enough so that you couldn't draw unemployment, and enough you couldn't get by with it.
Yeah.
And I come out below and talked to a fellow that I'd always bought my gasoline from, and he said, I need a man, he says, in the service station here. He said, why don't you come work for me? He said, he told me what he'd pay me. He says, I got a house. He says, it's empty. He says, oh, let you use the house too. So I said to my wife, I went home, I told her how much he would pay me a week. And I said, well, I have so much a week. And I said, we got a place to move to. And I said, we know what we're going to have for buy groceries with. And she said, well, that's a long ways from Grand Rapids. She said, to her that was like moving out in the country. She'd always lived in the city. So she come out here. We lived out here for a long time. So 57. In 57 he retired, and then he said, if you want the business, he said, we'll figure out a deal. He said, where you can take over the business.
Now, where was that gas station?
And that was in the corner of Main and Hudson.
On the southwest corner, right?
Southwest corner.
Southwest corner. And it was what kind of a station?
It was a Pure.
It was a Pure at that time.
Pure at that time, yeah.
Okay. Had it been a Standard at one time?
No, it was, before that it had been...
Texaco, maybe? No, not Texaco. I don't know. I remember it was something else.
Yes, I can remember.
Union 76 at one time.
Union 76 was after Pure.
After Pure.
After
Okay.
Pure.
So you got it, and it was a Pure station when you took it over. And
then it went
that was it, because I started buying my gas from you about then. So that's when I came to town.
Yeah,
in 56.
You went from then to Union 76.
Okay.
And stayed there until things at the oil and gas industry was kind of going to pot.
Now, during that time, was it Union 76 when you put the car wash in there?
Put the car
That
wash.
was the first
car
wash?
First car wash in Lowell, yeah.
No, that was, did they call that an automatic car wash?
Well, it was sort of automatic. You operated it by switches.
Yeah. I can remember that. And you wanted to hang on to your antenna.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
It tore off a lot of antennas, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I can remember buying my stuff there, but I'll tell you, Dick, sometimes I've been down there and I didn't have much money trying to keep my old car going, and I'll tell you, I remember a number of times you putting my old car on a hoist, getting under there, getting something, you'd rig up something, cut the tailpipe off instead of selling me a new one, slip her back together, put a clamp on it, it'd be $2.50, and I'd be on my way instead of $25, which I couldn't afford. And Dick, I'll always remember that, and I thank you. I want to say that right now, that I thank you very much for what you did here in town. And I know you did that for a lot of people here in town. You helped a lot of folks out, and I bet you made a lot of good friends while using that business.
Well, I remember after I got out of high school, I worked for a Kruger company, and I worked in the meat department. Butcher used to say, you cut cheese, if they want a pound of cheese, you cut a pound and a quarter. You cut them just a little more than what they always want. I said to him, I says, Butch, I know these people. I says, I've lived with for a good many years, and I lived around the town. I know what they can afford and what they can't afford. I said, now, if you don't want me, I can leave tomorrow, tonight, if you want me to, and forget about it. But I said, I want to cut what I think they can afford.
What they want, what they ask for. Yeah. Honesty was your your thing.
Well, that's right.
You bet. Get you a long ways. Now, you tell me also you took a little vacation one day and your eye began to hurt.
Yeah.
Was that after you was in the Pure station?
Yeah, that was after I left the station.
Oh, okay.
After I left the station, I went to work for delivering parts for Wooden Box sales and service.
All right.
And friends of ours were going to Maine, and they wanted us to go with them, so they gave me a leave for a week to go with them, and we went to Maine for, I think it was a week up there. And on the way back, my eye had started to bother me, and it pained like the devil. And when I got back home, Doc, he looked at it and he said, "Man, I can't do nothing for you." He said, so sent me to a doctor in Grand Rapids, and he says, "I can patch it up," but he says, "I can't guarantee it." And I said, "Well, I can guarantee it if you can." And he says, "Well, how can you guarantee it?" I said, "Well, just take a darn thing out." And I said, "Then I'm all done with it."
You couldn't see out of it anyway, huh?
Couldn't see out of it anyway, and I said, "Well, I won't have to bother with the pain anymore." So he says, "Oh, you go home and think about it just for a week." And so I went, and about 3-4 days later, I said, "I had all I want of it." I said, "Let's get it out of there." So he sent me up to the hospital and had me meet him in the hospital, and they put me out, and I took the eye out and put a prosthesis in.
And I known you all these years, and the other day when our pre-interview, the first thing that I knew that he had a prosthesis for an eye. So
Yeah.
now you must have had all these years. You had to learn depth perception, different than we do.
Oh yeah, I still do.
I'm 7 years old.
I'm diabetic now, but if I check my blood sugar, I put the thing up there and
You find your finger first,
I
huh?
find the finger and then slide it up around my finger to the dot of blood.
But you've been able to drive all these
Oh,
years
yeah,
and
you
everything, and you learned to adapt.
You learn to adapt. You give yourself clearance, plenty of clearance between you and the fellow ahead of you and the side of you.
Do it defensively.
Yeah, you drive defensively. Right.
When we lose something, then we finally realize how much it means to us, don't we?
Not only that, but you learn to adapt.
That's right. Well, Dick, I'll tell you what, I certainly have appreciated your role in your service to our country. I want to be the first to thank you for that, as one here. Nick and I both do, in sharing this with us this time. I want to thank you for letting us put this into the military oral histories program that we've got, project. And what happens here is this will be preserved for we hope, a long time. And that somebody is going to learn something from this, because it's up to the guys like you that did their bit. Their little bit is why we are able to have this country, and why we're able to have our businesses, and why I was able to raise our families here and under a blanket of freedom. And if it hadn't been for a lot of guys like you, it just would never have happened. So I thank you.
The following oral military history project is a series of documentaries in association with the Lowell area men and women who proudly served and sacrificed part of their lives to preserve the opportunities for all of us to build our businesses and raise our families under a blanket of freedom. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.